Hello everyone, hello Elsen. Let me greet you here from the UNESCO International Institute of Higher Education, where I work as a policy analyst. Last month, in line with the International Women's Day, and to commemorate actually the International Women's Day, we have launched a report about the topic of the women participation in higher education institutions. And I'm here today now to show you some data that we have gathered in this report. For that, I'm going to show a couple of slides on my screen. And here you can see exactly the report that I was talking about. So in this report, we wanted to assess how women are participating in the higher education system. This report was developed after we assessed and found the data that the women, they have been the main beneficiaries in access to higher education when we look into the cohort between 2000 and 2018. What does it mean? It means that we have analyzed that from 2000 to 2018, we had an increase in access to higher education in general, and this has occurred worldwide. And then when we look into the gender aspect, we have seen that in most of the regions, the women, they have accessed, apart only from the sub-Saharan Africa, the women in all the regions, they have been the main beneficiaries in accessing higher education. So women are accessing higher education more than men in most of the regions, in most of the countries. This is not the case only when we look into the STEM, science, technology, engineering, and mathematics sector. So this is a positive data that we found out, that women are accessing more higher education. However, when we look into more details into this participation, we see that there are still many inequalities. The first one refers to the inequalities in the STEM, which what we call horizontal segregation. So the women, they are underrepresented in the STEM careers. Still, these careers, they have a heavy representation of male students in most of the countries. And globally, in over 2/3 of the countries, the percentage of females studying those graduation courses or those areas of study is below than 25%. So this is the first inequality aspect that we have identified. Another aspect of inequality that we have identified refers to the vertical segregation, so the post-graduation degrees. So the women, they are also underrepresented in PhD enrollment. They are overrepresented in bachelor and master degrees. Of course, there are still some regional differences, but when we look into the more advanced degrees, the more advanced postgraduate degrees, we still see more men graduating and assessing those degrees than women, where their share goes to 44%. Another inequality worth showing you here is the aspect of research performance. So what we see is that there are more male than female researchers worldwide. Of course, there are differences among countries, but globally, we can say that around 30% only of the researchers at universities are women. So we still see this big difference in terms of research performance. Women in general are publishing less than men. And this, of course, has an impact on the career at universities and higher education institutions, where the research performance is very much linked with the possibility of them achieving higher levels inside the institutions. Another inequality refers to the professoriate, and this is, of course, very much related to the research performance, as I just said. So women, they are overrepresented among the teaching staff in most of the education levels, primary education, secondary education, with 66 and 54%, respectively, as you can see in the slide. But when we look into the tertiary education, only 43% of the teaching staff are women. So although they are overrepresented in primary and secondary education, the more we go up, looking to the tertiary education, the less representation of women among the teaching staff we have. Of course, we have to note here that the share of women in tertiary education teaching positions has increased in all regions, apart from the sub-Saharan Africa. So this is a number that is increasing throughout the years, but still when we look into data from 2020, we see that women are underrepresented in tertiary education teaching staff. Another inequality worth mentioning refers to the senior management positions. And of course, this is very much linked with the research performance, with the professoriate. So the women, they are also underrepresented in these leadership positions inside the institutions. So if we look, for example, a sample of a study that was done by UNESCO in 2020, only 18% of directors were female in a sample of some Latin countries. So of course, this is a sample, but still we can see and conclude here that this achieving senior management positions or leadership positions is also far from, let's say, an equal gender parity reality in the higher education sector. And we also found the inequalities in terms of the wage gap. So we see that they have, although they have the same degree as their male colleagues, they have lower salaries. This is very much related to the horizontal gender segregation that I just mentioned at the beginning of my presentation, but also the parenthood impacts, which often have a higher impact on the careers of mothers than in the careers of fathers. So these are just a couple of examples that I brought to you, but we have more data available in the report. And here, as you can see on your screen, this is the report that you can find in our webpage. So let me just go back here, close the screen. And just to highlight that this is also a work in progress. So this is a report, as I said, that was developed, a study that was developed in line with the International Women's Day, but this is still work in progress. So we very much welcome contributions, suggestions, and even data if you have some specific data from your region. So we very much welcome that. And you can find here below a link where you can access the report and also share with us any material or any document suggestions or comments that you might have in the study. So we very much welcome you to check our material, and the other reports also align with this topic that we have in our webpage. Thank you very much.